I was watching television, then there was this man who said he is a teacher. So he had gone to school on his motorbike, only for him to return and saw his house submerged in water. So the only life left with him was the dress he was wearing. And that is no life anymore. Such a person will go through some psychological trauma. I've been wondering what happened to all our persons with disability within that area. How were they able to be saved? People would then have the decision to make whether to save my old lady, my old man, my children, or save my properties. All these. So if you sit down and you critically examine the magnitude of the problem that has befallen these people, I think that the state, as a, let me say, as a corporate, we've not really come to terms with what has befallen them. Other than that, we will not be discussing the issue the way we've been discussing. I think that things happen not to this level, and immediately in some jurisdictions, at least a state of emergency is declared. So all national resources is pulled together to immediately look at what could be done to save the situation. If up to today, almost 2 weeks now, we haven't, then we have a problem. Because Sena, we are just looking at water. But the consequence, the health consequence of what has happened, I'm just imagining what will happen in the next 2 weeks. If the water doesn't recede, what will happen in the next 2 weeks? Because rubbish, cemeteries, almost all these things are contaminating the water. And so people living along the banks of the Volta River from Akosombo up to Ada and even to Aplau will not be safe. Even when the water recedes, the fish from the river will not be safe. As a state, and as a state represented by a government, we have been very delinquent. We have been very, let me say, disinterested, and we have been very inefficient in the management of this particular spillage and the consequence that has occasioned it. And I think we owe the people of Ghana and the people of the area a very, very, let me say, important apology. But let me say also here that people have thrown in the issue, and I think the president must listen. If he's the president of this country, then he must listen. So now let me say this. If it will take our president to declare a day of national mourning for the fire in the Paris Basilica, if you take the president to declare a state of mourning for George Floyd, I wonder what it will take for the president to convince the president to declare a state of emergency for this particular area. What do you need to do? Just declare it. 3 days, within 3 days, go to Parliament, according to Article 37.
Whenever I say my PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
For a higher PENDREAM TV in Pachos, and your first time I subscribe to channel no found Sabo Addo to set a the video be a tour. Ube first person I share. Usha video new send a voice note to mine. I was 0277128777 0277128777. I be bo actually Ghana for you na.
Let's start the conversation this morning on the matter of all talk shows, Alaji and Alaji. And of course, let's start from what I just talked about. And I'll start with Honorable Lamptey Vanderpuye on this issue. Honorable, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Sena. And let me say good morning to my sweet sister and classmate, Nana Ya, and of course my comrade, Bernard Mona. In fact, he says he's an unofficial brother-in-law. So
what kind of unofficial?
Hey, Bernard can enter my bedroom, say I'm taking my sister away, and I won't have anything to say. My wife, oh. Anyway, thank you very much. Sina, I will start by saying I want to convey my sincere commiserations to all affected people, families, friends, loved ones, and also Ghanaians for this unfortunate and unexpected disaster that has befallen our country. I was outside the country and I came in and fell into this disaster. Immediately I had a call that it has affected some of our island communities in Nada. So as usual, the family person I am, I have to go and see whether my uncles and my aunties have been affected. And when I went truthfully, some of them had no option but to leave the islands and come to town. So close to about 30 people are occupying my grandmother's house, and they are there. I had to go and visit them, and I went to the Roman Catholic Church to see those who have been housed there. Then I decided to do a survey of the area, and truthfully, it's sad. Almost all the island communities around the Ada up to the estuary are gone. The water, the spillage has even affected the hospitality industry in the whole of Ada area. You know, Ada has become one of the foremost hospitality areas in the country. Aqua Safari, Peace Holiday, Max, and all these places, Paradise, the island, and all those places have been affected. Individual buildings have also been affected. Businesses are gone. Those who have been doing some businesses in tilapia rearing and all those things have had their cages gone. Poor farmers on all the islands have lost their farms. Those even who have gone into shallot farming, and the lands a bit far away from the Volta River have also seen all their lands and their farms besieged with water. It has even gone up so much that it is broken some of the, let me say, waterways that channel the water from the rivers to the sea, to the extent that even farms around the coastal plain, from Totimekope, Anyakpo, Okansekope, Pute, and all those places, Anyamam, and all those places have been affected. I'm looking at Ada being affected this way. Then I could imagine what is happening to the people of Agotime, Bato, Adidome, Mafi, Mepe, up to Juapon, even crossing through Senchi, Frankedua, and all those places to parts of Awudome, Chito, and all those places. Going down to Aplao, Keta, Angloga, Jelukope, I think the devastation is huge. I had not seen the TV pictures by then, but in the evening when I receded to my hotel room, I decided to flip to the TV, and I could really see what my colleagues, Samuel Kujeto, Alex Otojbe, Kobra Woyome, Jifa Gumashi, and all those people, I could feel what they were going through. Because I have experienced disasters in my constituency when it comes to fire. And what I go through, I could imagine what these people are going through. What I would say here first is the fact that I thank God that so far no life has been lost. But people's life are gone. You see, you could have life, but it will be meaningless. Because everything that makes you a human being is gone. I was watching television, then there was this man who said he is a teacher. So he had gone to school on his motorbike, only for him to return and saw his house submerged in water. So the only life left with him was the dress he was wearing. And that is no life anymore. Such a person will go through some psychological trauma. I've been wondering what happened to all our persons with disability within that area. how were they able to be saved? People would then have the decision to make whether to save my old lady, my old man, my children, or save my properties. All these. So if you sit down and you critically examine the magnitude of the problem that has befallen these people, I think that the state, as a corporate, we've not really come to terms with what has befallen them. Other than that, we will not be discussing the issue the way we've been discussing. I think that things happen not to this level, and immediately in some jurisdictions, at least a state of emergency is declared. So all national resources is pulled together to immediately look at what could be done to save the situation. If up to today, almost 2 weeks now, we haven't, then we have a problem. Because we are just looking at water. But the consequence, the health consequence of what has happened, I'm just imagining what will happen in the next 2 weeks. If the water doesn't recede, what will happen in the next 2 weeks? Because rubbish, cemeteries, almost all these things are contaminating the water. And so people living along the banks of the Volta River from Akuffo up to Addo and even to Aplau will not be safe. Even when the water recedes, the fish from the river will not be safe. So the health consequences demand that a much more serious approach is given to this. Now let me come to the discussion on this. What I have asked myself is that, was there no institutional memory? Because listening to the people, I said VRA did a simulation in June on this. Yes, VRA has been doing simulation. They've been doing spillage, but never to the magnitude of what happened. So if you'll be doing it all the time, you do simulation and then you do some spillage, and then it doesn't get to this level, the people would take it for granted that, oh, for the past 10 years, 20 years, they've been doing it, and when they do, it doesn't affect us that much. So that is what the people would take. 2, the current crop of people at VRA, I would say, were not alive, or maybe had not been born, or maybe were even kids when the last spillage of this magnitude happened. So they may not know the consequences of their action. 2, the disassemblies there, the personnel, the DCs, everybody, even some of the people living in those communities affected, do not have any idea as to what had happened some 40, 50 years down the line when we had a spillage of this magnitude. But in all jurisdictions where people think, there's what we call a disaster management plan of a facility like this. 2, when it happened some 40 or 50 years ago, how was it managed? 2, if we have to go to this level, what are the things that we need to do, put in place, in order not for it to have the effect it has had? So I'll just read it a little. I said that in all jurisdictions where we have dams like this, those disaster management plans, environmental impact assessment, and all these things are there. In fact, there are literature which is even made available to communities that live within the jurisdiction, the catchment area of a spillage like this, so that they themselves will be aware of the do's and don'ts that they have to go by if they live with them. So the worst part is that between the time that a level of this spillage happened and now, population had grown. There have been construction, there have been development in the catchment area, in some of the waterways where normally when the spillage is done, the water finds its way. So you can't assume that the sort of routine simulation exercise you do for 1 hour, 2 hours should be the same. In fact, day in and day out, as a dynamic institution, VRA should be reviewing its disaster plans over the period as the population grows and people get settlements closer to the catchment area. The worst part for me, as I look at all these things, is the fact that was there a national security briefing? No one, I've been in government before, I can tell you, no one can convince me that VRA did not inform the ministry. The ministry did not have a discussion with the national security, because there definitely will be a consequence of this pillage. So normally in governance, there is a whole briefing, cabinet briefing by national security minister or the minister for energy on what they are going to do. So at the state level, the administration will now look at how do we prepare towards this. Because VRA cannot tell me they just saw that the thing was getting to a very dangerous level one day or in 24 hours. No. They knew. They had forecasters. They work in close consonance with the media department. So they will have shared knowledge and they should have shared information. So they will have projected that this is going to happen. And so what action do we have to take? What people call remedial actions. So you prepare them. As soon as it happens, we do A, B, C. Or we are going to do the spillage 3 days time. How do we start doing evacuation exercises? So now, I was in the US when there was some little bit of rain. And then there was this festival, you know, artists, various artists. It's like international festival. And it rained to such an extent that there was mud. For 2 days, people could not move. It was almost within a small area. It was taken as a national disaster. President Biden had to move from Washington to the place. Just 2 weeks ago, a little rain, some parts of New York got flooded. It has to take the president to talk about it. Just recently, workers of the 3 notable motor companies in the US, motor manufacturing companies in the US, were picketing. The numbers were nowhere near the Julobi demonstration or the Occupy Bank of Ghana demonstration. President Biden joined them. You understand? That in Ghana, my president can tell me that he was never briefed about what was going to happen, that he could leave this place and travel at the back of his mind that something like this was going to happen. And he didn't tell his vice that Mahmoudou, the US, if he cannot speak Hausa, Mahmoudou, me call USO. He couldn't tell him that. That vice, I'm traveling. Take care of the presidency. So it has to take a week. Vice, me from Baye, but we understand some little Gan. Samira understand Gan. So let me say so that she will tell him. Hey, Vice, me from Baye, because Nana speaks Gan a lot. Me from Baye, Nana is Swalaba boy. Me from Baye, what come on say Ojoba? You understand me? That it has to take over a week for the presidency to physically make an attempt of assuaging the pain of the people who are affected. It's never done anywhere. Never. I've seen presidents who are in the air, and then disasters not of this level had occurred in their country. They've turned and come back, forgotten about the international meetings and all these things they are going, come to look at what has happened to their people. It happened during Jerry Rawlins's time. It happened under President Mills. It happened under President Mahama. Let me tell you, for example, when the June 3rd rain and disaster happened. I and my minister, we were in the western region, preparing towards national sanitation in the western region. Within hours, we were called to proceed to Accra. Because we could not come where we were asked to drive to Takoradi, and there was a flight waiting for us to move us on Takoradi to Accra. Because a decision has to be taken. And the role of local government was paramount in the decision taking. You understand? That is how swift governance institutions deal with such situations. This lackadaisical attitude that have been exhibited by government, totally shambolic. Look, and say they are forming a ministerial committee. You form a ministerial committee, and the two most vital ministries when it comes to this were not present. In a disaster like this, if I were there, the first ministry I would have thought about, gender, women, and social protection. Because I thought about PWDs, persons with disability, within all these 8 districts. How do we take care of them? Women, children. Children are not going to have access to school. What do we do? Even where the schools where they have not been affected, people were going to be moved to those schools. So the children who are not going to have the opportunity of going to school, what do we do? People are not going to have access to food. They can't even cook because their kitchens have been taken out. What do we do? So all this that's the reason why I was listening. Some of the people said the rice that they are bringing, the raw rice and things they are bringing, then they can't cook because they don't even have coal pot. So where are they going to cook? Somebody with social welfare perspective must be sitting there and thinking about what we should do. Ministry of Health is not a member of the ministerial committee. Jesus Christ. Disaster like this, Ministry of Health is not. I don't know what this government, I don't know how they think. I don't know how they sit down to even think and try and construct things. But I would say the total management of this disaster has been shambolic. Shambolic, incompetence, or let me say willful neglect. Maybe they are not interested. Oh, it happens all the time. Because I've heard somebody saying that spillages are done all the time. Not of this level. I listened to Nanaya, and let me congratulate you by your knowledge. You were SB. Just that lady did not allow you to really teach her. Because I could see that you were struggling to teach her. But she wouldn't allow you to do. You have more knowledge because you have been in the sector before. I think that we should look at VRA. Maybe this attrition has affected VRA. I cannot tell. But I know VRA used to have very, very competent engineers. And they don't joke with forecasting. Because the work they do is so dangerous and so paramount for the security of the state. So when you go to VRA, you could see the environment itself will tell you that this is an area where people are very serious with what they do. Less noise, everybody is thinking, I don't know what would have happened. Maybe the Naya will be able to tell us what really happened. Because unless the attrition, the disappointment in this country that is making people leave could be a reason why all the good engineers and all forecasters and all the technical people they may have left. That is why such a negligent act could be done. Then I'll be convinced. But if really what I know VRA to be and how I magnify their output and their deliverables in the past, I doubt to say it is a VRA that sat down and allowed this thing to happen. I just can't fathom it because I know with VRA, they are very diligent when it comes to their work. So, Sena, on the whole, on this particular issue, let me say, as a state And as a state represented by a government, we have been very delinquent. We have been very, let me say, disinterested, and we have been very inefficient in the management of this particular spillage and the consequence that has occasioned it. And I think we owe the people of Ghana and the people of the area a very, very, let me say, important apology. But let me say also here that people have thrown in the issue, and I think the president must listen. If he's the president of this country, then he must listen. So now let me say this. If we take our president to declare a day of national mourning for the fire in the Paris Basilica, if we take the president to declare a state of mourning for George Floyd, I wonder what it will take for the president to convince the president to declare a state of emergency for this particular area. What do you need to do? Just declare it. 3 days, within 3 days, go to Parliament according to Article 37. Within a week, you try and see whether you could even enhance it further for another 3 months. Just within the area. We're not saying declare a state of emergency the whole Ghana. Just within the area, so that you can bring all the army, the fire service, the health officials, and you can bring all the resources. If you don't have, let me give you an example. And I will say this. When President Akuffo, when we had this floods in Accra, the second year of President Akuffo, he declared a state of emergency. So they even brought engineers from outside. Hydro engineers from America, the US. So the US came in to help. I was there in IMA. Look at how sustainable our drainage and hydro systems were, and gave advice as to what to be done. June 3rd, when it happened, President Mama sought even assistance from people outside for us to be able. What has happened? We are just handling it as if we have. Look, right now, if there is a major health consequences, who are we going to depend on? The same Ministry of Health that we have left out of this, or we will need people from outside. When it comes to a situation whereby, how many helicopters do we have that could lift people away? It is something that we should know. These are our limitations. Can we depend on a neighbor? Can we depend on a foreign assistance? And you cannot get those things if you have not come to the conclusion that, please, this is where I've got into. I need assistance. And international responses come in when you normally declare a state of emergency. Then you get a response to them. I think that the government must act, and must act well. I wouldn't want to leave this topic without saying that I felt a bit offended by the way the president conducted himself. I wouldn't want to talk about the politics. I wouldn't want to even dwell on the things he said, because many people have condemned it. I want to dwell on his posture. And I want to tell Mr. President, you being president does not mean you should always disrespect the people who you address. Nowhere in our culture do you have the right to use your left hand to talk to chiefs. I don't know which culture in Ghana, but it's not permitted under my Ghanaian culture. You can't. I don't know whether in Achim they do that, but somebody should tell him. This is the third time I'm seeing the president talking to chiefs and throwing his left hand in public. Somebody should tell him it's never done. It's a mark of disrespect, pomposity, arrogance, and pride. And as a leader of this country, you don't do that. In fact, people who are even southpaws, normally when you are managing them, and you know that normally they use their left hand to talk, in public, you tell them to put their left hand behind them so that they will be obstructed from using it. In all this, you prepare the person before the person goes in. I think people who handle the president do not know those protocols, and somebody must tell them. 2, you cannot talk to chiefs in your most highest temperament. You understand me? And it has happened. The recent issue, is it at this thing where he was talking to one, the national anthem was being played, and one chief said he was not feeling well, so he was sitting down. The way he talked, and the way his posture, a president must show diplomacy, tact. If you, the president, will always exhibit this high temperature in public places, what do you want the ordinary citizens to do? What do you want other citizens to do? Mind you, in public, the people you are speaking, some may be older than you. You may be a president, but some of them will be older than you. So you must show that respect, so that the people will also give you that respect. Oh, they can say that, oh, Papa Nele Bear Hishie, look, many people respected Professor Mills, not because of his name, Prof, but because of his demeanor when he's addressing people. The way he will comport himself, even in his angry mood, the way he will speak. Even Jerry Rawlings, who was seen as very abrasive and very energetic, doesn't talk to chiefs in that manner. And I think that people who manage the president must begin to sit up. If they don't let one or two, they should see people like Nana Yajantua with that background in communication, in public relations, to teach them. Maybe they should employ you as a consultant after sacking you from this place, so that you teach them how to manage such big people, so that in public appearances they will stop embarrassing us the way they have been embarrassing us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So a for channel I share video we also a PENDREAM TV mpacho wa share we adwuntwa bia wo fa video yi no ho bia no send my e wo 0277128777 0277128777 e WhatsApp number no send your voice ne bra na bebo magana fo nyina te wonka
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Ah nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.